So a strike is looming at Air Transat. Already the carrier is cutting back on flights. Let's get more from Robert Kokonis, President and Managing Director at AirTrav. Robert, great to see you. Thanks very much for giving us the time. Obviously, this is the last thing management or even the pilots want, but they just cannot reach a deal.
Yeah, especially for Transat, 38 years of labor peace. This is coming as a bit of a shock, isn't it? I just want to clarify one thing. I did check with a few sources. Transat does indicate they are running a full slate of flights today, including some additional repatriation flights to bring people back. So the pull down of flights would start later tonight and all of tomorrow down to zero if that's where we go to.
So have you any handle on what the impasse here is? Is it pay? The pilots obviously say we want a similar deal to the Air Canada pilots.
Yeah, I mean, it always, with the pilots, it always comes down to the money. I think that the working conditions, other benefits, I think those are they're fairly close, if not already agreed. But it's money. And my fear is this, I mean, for ALPA and the pilots, they're almost coming to the big pilot contract bump a little bit late. We saw the U.S. carriers, we saw the big Air Canada settlement for 42% over 4 years. Right now, because my concern is that consumer sentiment has been waning. We know that air travel is always the leading edge of any economic slowdown. And I'm concerned with the numbers I'm seeing that the pilots are willing to not agree to a substantive bump up over the 5 years, as you've noted, is quite concerning. So we're talking about a 59% increase over 5 years. A lot of that in the first year, and I might note their last collective agreement expired in 2020, and the pilots had 3 bump ups totaling 19% over that space of time. So 78% over the span of, let's say, 10 years is a very significant number. So it would be very, very unfortunate if the travel plans of Canadians and others would be interrupted by labor strife.
How strong a player is Transat? Maybe we could put up a 5-year chart. Are they reasonably profitable?
Yeah, I mean, they've started to turn a profit this year. That's great. And if we remember back in January, the federal government stepped in to provide some relief for the large enterprise emergency funding facility that was put up in place during COVID. Transat never really ran any long-term debt before that, and they really struggled coming out of COVID with that. So the federal government helped us slice a few $100 million off that amount. So that's great, more stable balance sheet. And they have been putting in some profitable quarters this year, which is great, but I wouldn't say they're out of the woods yet. Systemically, Transat's in the middle of restructuring the company from a vertically integrated holiday company where you had a tour operator, travel agency, and the airline was only fulfilling seats to one that's evolving into more of a network carrier, separate from the holiday package business. But make no mistake about it, the holiday business is still a huge piece. They're flying to over 60 destinations. They have 39 airplanes in the air right now. And it was one thing, let's say back in the summer, Air Canada flight attendants went out. Terrible to see people's summer vacation plans ruined. But this time of the year is a pretty special time for a lot of travelers going to see family, for example. So I think this timing is bad. I would also note as well, too, the 72-hour required notice under our labor laws, I believe, for a large, complicated aviation player, whether it's Transat or even an Air Canada, of course, much bigger, 72 hours is just not enough time to ensure we safely get all the planes and crews back where they should be grounded, but also all the airlines want to make sure they make an effort to repatriate travelers before potential shutdown. Bottom line, though, I feel still optimistic. A negotiated settlement is always preferable to a strike, and I believe that the parties were talking last night and continue to talk today. So let's hope the cooler heads prevail on both sides.
Will other airlines? Just remind me. What is their relationship with Porter? Because they are teamed up with that carrier.
They are, and it's been fairly successful so far. It's a fairly broad code-sharing relationship where the Transat code is placed on or marketed, as we say, on Porter flights across North America, and Porter places their code on Transat operated flights internationally. And so it's a fairly broad relationship, and it really gave Transat what they were missing, which was a feeder structure within Canada and even from the US to feed those two big banks of international flights that Transat operates from both Toronto Pearson and Montreal Trudeau Airport.
Just a reminder, Transat is a lot smaller, obviously, than a player like Air Canada.
They are. I mean, as I said, I mean, the impacts of a flight attendant strike this past summer there in Canada, quite significant. And Transat, with a mainline operation of maybe 220, 225 airplanes flying everywhere around the world, that was Air Canada. In Transat's case, much smaller, 43 airplanes, of which 39 are in service. And they're flying to a lot of destinations across the Caribbean, Mexico, even into South America. They've got a flight between Montreal and Lima, Peru. They're starting flights this December, I believe, to Georgetown, Guyana. They fly across Europe and points in North Africa. Now, some of those are seasonal, but they're still flying to 60 plus destinations on their own outside of the Porter relationship. Of the 60, maybe 15 aren't being flown right now that are seasonal summer, but it's still enough, and enough with maybe 10,000 some odd passengers per day. And let's say there was a shutdown for 3 days or who knows how long, that's a pretty significant impact, not to mention the number of people who will be impacted on the lead up to a work stoppage and then a recovery period after a work stoppage.
Wow, not a great time to be stuck or have your travel plans fall apart. Robert, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
You're welcome, Andrew, and happy holidays to you as well.
You too, of course. Robert Kokonis, President and Managing Director at AirTrav.